My real issue was that I wasn't making the transition into third act thinking. And third act thinking is, okay, all of a sudden, you're not all of this stuff anymore. What's the third act about? And historically, there never was a third act.
Hello, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, your reverse mortgage experts, and you found the Serving Seniors podcast. That's where we highlight those businesses and those individuals that help seniors not just get by or not just survive, but actually thrive in retirement. And today we have another one of those awesome individuals. We have Wayne Lehrer, and Wayne is an author. He wrote a book called The Art of Conscious Aging, and he's going to share with you how it works, how the book applies, and how you can put that into your life to have a great final and third act. So, Wayne, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
Thank you for being here, sir, and thank you for what you're doing for seniors. From what I've learned about it so far, it's fantastic, and look forward to learning more.
Great.
Well, I know that a lot of people kind of like to get to know the background of, maybe your coming up story, like how'd you get involved in this and where you're from. So please share as much as you like of your story and how you ended up here.
All right. Well, I've pretty much been auditioning for this role my entire life. I've always eaten pretty healthy. I've always exercised.
Okay.
I've done every kind of diet from fasting to vegan to keto to macrobiotics. So I've understand that part of it. I practiced holistic health. I was a holistic health practitioner in my 20s and 30s and used to speak at various conferences on those kind of issues. And then I had this full life as I was an inventor. I've been a designer. I designed museums, world's fairs, and theme parks for a living.
Okay.
For about 17 years. I was a filmmaker. I made the first kids TV show that had live action and computer graphic characters. I did Dan Rather's Evening News. I was a producer on that. And then I designed and I did IMAX films. So I've had this kind of really all over the place lifestyle. And in my late 50s, early 60s, all of a sudden, your life changes and nothing really prepares you for it, and my body started having issues, nothing major, but enough where, I hadn't been to a doctor. Literally, I've been to a doctor once in 35 years. I had been able to take care of myself. I ate really well. I exercised. I did everything I knew how to do. Plus, I was sort of a specialist in the field, so I could heal myself by dieting or fasting or, whatever. And, you hit a certain point where those things don't work as well.
Okay.
And you really have to face the fact that these bodies have an expiration date.
Wow.
And you're not privy to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden at 60, not only did my body start doing stuff and my son was gone and I downsized and my income was shrinking a little bit, not noticeably. I wasn't on a fixed income, and I was still way ahead of the curve, but I could see where it was going. And as happens for many people, somewhere in their 50s or 60s, mid-60s, they all of a sudden are confronted with the reality that nothing has prepared them for what's coming up.
Wow.
The body's changed. They're no longer a parent because the kids have moved out. So the identity they got from being a mother or a father, even though they're still a mother or father, they're not being valued for that, and they're not doing activities. They may only talk to their kid once a week, once they go away to college, or even less often. And their kids certainly not demanding them to be the wisdom in their life every day. Right. And then they may leave work or got downsized or got, laid off or whatever it was. And all of a sudden, the 5 people they saw every day at work or 2,000 people they saw every day at work is gone. So their world has shrunk in terms of not necessarily friends, but acquaintances. And so all of a sudden they've got less people in their life, and then they're not earning at that same level. So all of those things were happening to me at nothing major, nothing where I was in deep fear yet. but enough that I went into this low-grade depression.
Wow.
And I went to go see a therapist, a gerontological therapist, somebody specializing in therapy for older people. And he was dealing with me on the issue of depression. And meanwhile, I met the three of the top people in the world in the aging field, the president of AARP, the dean of the top gerontology school in the world, and the top fitness expert for baby boomers. And they all became my best friends. And they all said, well, you should write a book on the subject.
Wow.
And so I'm in therapy, I'm having these issues, and all of a sudden I realized that therapy wasn't helping. It wasn't depression. And what I realized from being there and talking to this man once a week, and also beginning to think about these issues and beginning to write the book, I realized that the problem was that I was having an identity crisis. I hadn't made the transition in my head from the identity that represented the second act to the identity of the third act. And I'll go through that real simple. So there's three acts as I see it in life. The first act is where we're dependent. We're children. We're learning. We're finding out how to function in the world. We're making our first friends. We're investigating. So that's the first act. The second act is about independence. We've left home. We're going away to college. We're finding our mate. We're getting our first jobs. We're getting on our feet. And that period of time, the operating manual for that, the operating system for that second act is achieve, acquire, compete, succeed, accumulate. So we do that for 40 years, from 20 to 60, and it becomes our identity, right? We really think of ourselves as a parent, as a lawyer, as a coworker, as somebody who goes to the gym 5 times a week to work out. And when all of those things are brought into question, my identity is brought into question. And that's what was happening for me. And I didn't know it. So I wasn't actually depressed. Depression was the byproduct.
Okay.
So I realized that the real issue was, and this was a huge wake-up call, and my therapist, he didn't even know what to do with it. My real issue was that I wasn't making the transition into third act thinking. And third act thinking is, okay, all of a sudden, you're not all of this stuff anymore. What's the third act about? And historically, there never was a third act. Okay. People at 60, 62, they died or they retired, and retirement was basically waiting, your life getting smaller and smaller. Now, 60 years old, you got 30 or 40 more years. You don't want to be just sitting around twiddling your thumbs on your Barco lounger and making plans for cruises once a year,
right,
and watching golf on TV every day as your sports activity. So what's it going to be? And so that was the big issue for me. And that's sort of what drove me to write the book and really to question, what is a third act? And, what's it look like? And what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? So the third act is about collaborating, building community. It's not about independence. It's not about dependence or independence. It's now about interdependence. So to successfully be in the third act, you'll have to most of us haven't been prepared. Certainly most men are not prepared to become interdependent.
Sure.
I was bringing home the bacon for the family. I was the lawyer. I was successfully doing this. I was the dad. Well, what if the I that I've been no longer exists? Who am I now? Sure. And so that was the issue, and that's sort of the center of the book, which is helping you make that transition and recognize what a healthy and expansive third act could look like.
Wow, that's amazing. And then while I'm thinking about it, could you show a picture of the book and let us know where we could find it as well?
So it's called The Art of Conscious Aging, a guide to health, happiness, and purpose in life's third act. And it's available on Amazon.
Okay.
There's also a workbook that comes with it, which is actually a way to work through a lot of those issues that I just spoke about, identifying yourself. And part of making a healthy transition is starting with letting go who you've been.
Okay.
So one of the things I talk about in the book is the story you're telling is the life you're living. So most of us know older people, and they talk about 3 things: their grandchildren, the way it used to be, and their aches and pains / visit doctor appointments.
Right. Exactly. Don't forget the weather. The weather.
And the weather and a little bit of politics and a little bit of sports.
Yeah, exactly.
But basically, if we look at the difference between youth and old age, we could break it down to the simplest thing in the world: contraction or expansion. Being young is about doing new things and expanding all the time.
Right.
Being old is about contracting and saying, I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't do that anymore. I can't. I won't. It's not fun. I'm afraid. So all of those things. So that's one of the first mindsets to deal with, but you have to let go of the old story of who you've been and what you've been identified with. Because I believe that who I've been is the fertile ground for who I can become in my third act. We don't just throw it all away. We actually recreate, I call the third act the re-years: redesign, recreate, reimagine, reinvent. And that's what we have to do. And a lot of us haven't been given the tools. And one of the most challenging aspects is, for example, between the first act and the second act, we have tons of role models. You want to become famous? You got the Kardashians. You want to become rich? You've got Elon Musk. You want to become an inventor? You've got Steve Jobs. You want to, IPO a company? We've got all of these possible scenarios. Parenting, you got examples. Everything that you're going to do in your third act, there's tons of role models. There are no real role models for the third act. Exciting, Jimmy Carter, great role model. He was actually more effective in his third act than he was in his second act. You would know from being in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He created Habitat for Humanity in his third act, and literally created homes for millions of people, and became a powerful and benevolent force. And part of what the third act is, it's about giving back. It's about taking the lifetime's worth of skills and gifts and connections and friends and passions that you have, and asking the question, where can I be of value? What in the world speaks to me that needs my skill set, where I can go? Because you may not need to earn money from it, or you may only need to earn 20% of what you were earning in the past to supplement your pension and your Social Security. So it's not a big ask to actually recreate yourself and have something that not only brings you an income, that's the smallest part of it, but something that gives you a real sense of value. One of the things, Matt, that happens for a lot of people when they get older, and specifically that drives them into this third act, is they ask the question, have I really created anything of real value? What have I done that matters? And now they're at a stage of life where instead of it being over, this is the time when you're supposed to do that.
Okay.
Right?
That's fantastic. Wayne, it sounds like you had tons of different experiences and fantastic jobs over the years. Maybe could you tie some parallels to a couple of your jobs that actually allowed you to consciously decide that this is what you needed, and how those jobs tied into what you're doing now, as an author and helping other seniors? Well,
that's a great question, Matt. And I'll give you myself as an example, and I'll give you a couple examples from my book. I have a guy in the book. He spent 38 years in prison. This entire second act from 19 to 57 for killing somebody in a bar fight.
Okay.
While he was in prison, all these other guys, as you hear all the time, they were not guilty. And so he studied law while he was in prison, and he wrote them briefs. He got 20 guys out of prison, right? While he was in prison, he saw that the way people were treated was the humanity of it all wasn't all that great. So he started writing letters to congressmen and to the warden and to the prison board. And so anyways, and then he got sober in prison. He became a meditator in prison. He changed his whole life while he was there. At 56 years old, the governor of California found out about the work he'd done to change the prison system. And he's one of two people who had their life without parole commuted, and he's been released. And since then, he's raised $70 million in the California legislature for prisons. So he took his lifetime's worth of work. Now that's a kind of a bold, I'll give you other examples.
Yeah.
So for myself, having always been aware of how to eat, I've been teaching yoga and meditation for 25 years and training teachers. So I already knew about this state of mind. So for example, one of the things about the second act, it's all about doing. And the main thing about successfully being happy in your third act is you have to shift from doing to being. So you still do, but you do it from a place of being as opposed to a place of being goal-oriented. Now it's getting the value from the very thing you're doing, right? So that was something else I could teach. I had done executive retreats for corporate executives for years, so I understood the entrepreneurial mindset that it was going to take to put a book together and start launching workshops. Just prior to COVID, a couple years prior to COVID, I was going to China regularly doing workshops in meditation and authentic happiness. So now what's happening is I've got, I do one-on-one coaching with people. I'd been doing that as a yoga and meditation teacher for 25 years. I do one-on-one coaching to help people make this transition because the transition is very challenging for most people. I've got my first workshop set up in Florida at a senior living place with 2,500 people at it, and that's going to be a workshop for 600 people. Wow. So I get to take and I did workshops my whole life. I've been leading workshops in yoga and meditation, and I've been doing these retreats. And so basically all of those skills are coming together now for me to take this message that I feel is uniquely mine to take out. I had issues with how to go to, most older people have sleep issues. I went through all of that stuff. I have sleep apnea, I have heart, I have AFib. I've got to deal with the medical issues, and I've taken all those issues, and none of them rule my life. They're just something that happened. So I've basically taken a lifetime worth of experience and said, yeah, this is the way I can take it into the world now. And I think that everybody has the ability to do that. And not everybody has to do something major like my friend Ken did with the prison systems.
Sure.
He going out and, having a dream to take these workshops into every city in America and getting 500 people in a room together, getting excited about their third act, and transitioning. So, some people, it's just as simple as creating a neighborhood victory garden. Mm-hmm. And what kind of experience would that be? Well, maybe they were political organizers earlier on with a hobby of being of creating a window gardens, or whatever it is, or it could be as simple as becoming a dog walker in your neighborhood, so that you stay in contact with people and you get to do something where you're being of service. So I think it takes many different shapes and many different forms, and I think the most important part of it is I say that to be happy, we need three things. Well, we need a lot more than three things, right. But I'm overly simplifying. Sure. We need to know that we're valuable. We need to feel valued, and we need to be feeling like we're creating value. And if we're doing those three things, that's what, to me, the third act is about, because those are the main things that get lost when we transition out of being doers and achievers and accumulators and succeeders and winning to this period of time of beingness. And what does that look like? How do I show up? What kind of doing do I do in this state of beingness to feel valuable? Because no one wants to just feel, you see so many people, the biggest problem with aging people, besides health issues, is isolation.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you don't have that contact that you need. All of a sudden people aren't acknowledging you for what you do on a daily basis and what you bring to their life. And
that's an awesome point. And I know when I first started to work in this field that I was always thought, well, when you get older, you'd start worrying about dying and death and fear. And then as I've talked to more people, definitely some people fear that, but there's even more people that actually fear of living, but running out of money. And, that's why I wanted to chat with you, because you're working on the mental side, you're working all kind of in between the ears, but we found so many people, it's hard for them to also have peace of mind if they're worried about finances, right? And so it doesn't matter if you're which side of the aisle, if you're watching CNN or Fox News all day long, right? It's just a different twist on death, destruction, war, fear, scarcity, all these type of concerns. So that's what we love. What we do is we call it a second chance. And people go, what do you mean second chance? Well, second chance at the long-term care policy that someone slid across the table, and you go, whoa, $2,000 a month. That's expensive, right? You never bought it.
Yeah.
It's second chance at that 401k that most people were going to start maxing out next month, right? Oh, I'll max it out next month. I'll max it out next year. I'll save money when the kids are out of college, and I'll save money. And then before long, you're retired, right? But what we found is that most people don't like to live outdoors, right? They want to live, so they need to buy a house. And then there's a little thing in a traditional mortgage, we call it no pay, no stay, right? On a mortgage, if you don't make your payments, they don't let you stay. So most people, their second chance is they bought a house, they made all their payments, and oh, by the way, real estate usually goes up. And that's kind of where we come in, and we can help people have the peace of mind, is we can show them how to use a small percentage of their equity to have money coming in monthly to either pay for long-term care, pay for training like you have, pay for necessities. And we have a lot of seniors that they have that covered already. We can show them how they can use a little of their home equity to actually take it to the next level, more vacation, more trips, spoil the grandkids, all while still owning their house. They can still sell their house. Everything that we do is just a regular mortgage. It just doesn't require a huge monthly payment like regular mortgage. So that way your seniors, they don't have to be worried about money when we come around and help them.
Well, one of the issues that I also deal with in the book is this idea of like, what do you really need? And I'm not talking living from scarcity.
Yep.
But, really, I mean, part of peace of mind, and maybe one of the most important parts, is coming out of this place of fight or flight of the nervous system, which says there's not enough, right? And we live in a culture that is based on that there's never enough.
Right.
I'm never at the job level I want to be. I'm never at the earning level I want to be. I'm never valued at the, I didn't get all of the accolades I deserve, all of that kind of stuff. At what point? So in the third act, in order to be happy, you need to start living in enough consciousness, which is, this is what it is. And so, downsizing doesn't mean your life being small. For example,
sure.
Prior to seeing you this morning, I go to the beach, I run on the beach shirtless and jump in the ocean every morning. Now that's what people do on vacation. Right? So I don't need to go anywhere. I live in Southern California, and I take advantage of where I live and live the life here. And that costs me gas. I got a year parking pass at the Santa Monica Beach parking lots that are right on the sand.
Wow.
Dollars a year. So I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
And across the board, we can do those things if we really look at them, because what's more important than what I have is whether or not I'm going to be happy, and whether trying to have more or trying to live at the same level I've been living at all my whole life, and not be creative and say, wait a second, I could get a dog, which would get me out of the house regularly, which would get me on walks, which would take me to the dog park where I'd meet people, where I'd get exercise, where I'd get sunlight and vitamin D, where, all of these things are all plus stuff that come out of one little simple decision that is basically doesn't cost a cent.
Sure.
So, so scaling back is not going without, it's being creative about what really matters and finding a way to do that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. You can get past the, I'm going to clean out the house for all the toys and junk and everything so we can have another year of buying toys and junk and things we don't need, right? So you can get out of that cycle and just enjoy. There's so many things out there that we can do that don't cost very much at all. Like you said, a dog could get you all those things for minimum cost.
Exactly.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Wayne, you've dropped all kinds of knowledge bombs, I call it, on us right now, all kinds of amazing facts. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share as we wrap up?
Let's see. I think that it's really important for people entering their third act to believe that anything is possible.
Mm,
What happens is you start writing scenarios of doom and gloom. This is where it's going to go. I'm going to run out of money.
yep.
I'm going to be pushing a shopping cart. I'm going to have, this little mole here is going to turn into cancer, is going to turn into,
Right.
writing all of these doom and gloom scenarios is not uncommon. Everything that's ever come up in a person's life, I believe, they've made it through it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been to the age they were. So
Right.
nothing has ever stopped you. Why would you believe that something's going to completely take you out of the game? Of course, we're going to die. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
That is a foregone conclusion. In fact,
Sure.
one of the most important things about having a healthy third act is accepting mortality and accepting within that, yeah, maybe I'm not going to be as mobile. Maybe I'm not going to be living at the same level of wealth or abundance or whatever. But that doesn't mean I can't be opening new things. I am in the most hopeful place in my life I've ever been. I had this dream that I was going to start doing workshops I told my friends, I said, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I want to go from city to city and do 300 to 500 people in these workshops. And I want to do an online coaching class where 100 people get on every week and we talk about the stuff that matters, and I coach people through this. Well, those things are all happening.
Wow.
And they're only happening because I dared to dream them. And then just put in a little bit of work. I didn't put in the same level of work it took me in my earlier
Sure.
incarnation. It's really now come out of this place of beingness and living the thing. I do and live everything that's in my book. And so the book has become an energy source, in other words, not the book, but for anybody who would be doing this, the thing that you're going to create for your third act is going to feed you and give you a sense of hopefulness that's going to help you not get stuck in the doom and gloom stuff and see that anything is possible. And I think that's really the main message. And I can't tell you, because I interviewed in every chapter, I use one or two people as example of whatever the chapter's about. So I can't tell you how many people I know in my age range. I'm 74. That are the happiest they've ever been in their life. And they're not making more money. Most of them are on a fixed income or on their retirement plan. Most of them have done stuff like what you're offering, for them to do, to be able to scale back and live a good life. But all of these people that I've become, that are now my friends and that I work with, they're all feeling the most hopeful and the most positive and that they've ever felt. And above all, and happiness is a weird word.
Sure.
We think of happiness as tied to events. It's really this level of contentment and serenity, but not content with that there's nothing left to do, but content that it's all going in a really positive way. And all I need to do is keep showing up as a co-creator.
Wow. I think what's well said. Well said. And I think the neat thing about what you're sharing is that you don't need more stuff. You don't need more ideas. You don't need more of anything, right? You currently have exactly what you need to be as happy as you've ever been.
Yes.
If you make the decision and put in place some of the ideas that you have in your book. So that's fantastic.
And if anyone's struggling with these things, again, go out and buy a copy. It's you don't need the workbook. You can use the book. There's questions in the back of each chapter, simple questions, but just things that get you thinking in a new and positive way. Because we all need help, making it through. I call it the third act identity crisis. It's really, I think, one of the most challenging points in anybody's life. Even if everything's going fairly well, even if you got tons of money in the bank, you still have to address this new identity where you're not doing all the same things you've been doing, and therefore, who am I now?
Sure. That's awesome. That is awesome, Wayne. Well, if you could share, maybe is it find the book on Amazon, and then do you have a website with the workshops? How would someone find out about workshops?
They could go onto my website, Wayne Lehrer, WayneLehrer.com, and they can contact me there. My email address is wayne@waynelehrer.com. And or you can just make a contact, and I have a free 30-minute discovery calls for anyone that might be interested in coaching, or that just has a question that they need somebody to bounce things off of. So they could sign up on my website for that as well.
That's awesome, sir. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. There's not many people out there that really understand this, let alone focus on it. So keep up the great work. I know that we could go have a senior go find a psychologist, therapist, or whatever. The challenge is if they're in their 30s or 40s, they have no earthly idea what the person's going through. And you're the perfect person because you're right there with them. You've actually figured it out, not for them, but for yourself. And now it's an awesome, awesome journey you're on to share that with other people that's going through the same thing. So please keep up the great work. I'm so glad we got to meet and glad you got to share your message today.
Thank you, Matt. You're very generous. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you again. And thank you for watching the Serving Senior podcast, where we highlight these awesome people like Wayne that help seniors not just survive, but thrive in retirement. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again. Hey, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, home of Retirement Mortgage Solutions. And we really do appreciate you checking out the Serving Seniors podcast today. Now, please go to the description down in the body of the podcast where you can subscribe to get future shows. Please click that notification button so you get notified when other shows drop. And also, if you can go to servingseniorspodcast.com, and we'd love to hear a comment about our show. We have a heart to serve seniors, and we have a heart to make sure seniors don't just survive retirement, don't just get by in retirement. We want to show seniors how to thrive in retirement. So if you know of anyone that's 55 and older that could use some extra cash flow, maybe the retirement's not going the way that they like, our retirement mortgage solutions are designed for folks, and depending on the state, they're either 55 or 62 and older, to make sure that they have that kind of retirement that they want. As long as they own a home and they're in a good equity position, there could be some solutions that they may not have thought about, or maybe they've thought of and they just didn't know how they work. That's what we do. So anyone in that age group that could use some mortgage advice, my team and I would love to be able to help them. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you on the next show. Have a great day.